Well, the Super Bowl on Sunday marks the end of, let's call it, an interesting NFL season, one that really charged through a pandemic. So to discuss more about this, we've got Demario Davis. He's a linebacker for the New Orleans Saints. We're going to talk about the season and other issues that are facing the league, in addition to your own nonprofit that you're working on. So I want to kick things off and just, talking about the first few weeks of the season. It seemed like there were games getting canceled, postponed, teams were shutting down practices. As a player, were the hiccups along the way as expected? Did you expect to even see a Super Bowl right now in February?
Well, it was interesting because the season kind of started back mid pandemic. Our entire off season was interrupted. We didn't have OTAs, we didn't have mini camp, and all of a sudden, we were going back for training camp. And as the NFL met and NFLPA met, you could tell there was still a lot of unanswered questions. We didn't know what the season was going to be like, but I think they rolled the ball out, just kind of hoping for the best. And fortunately, we made it through an entire season with limited cases, with limited spread, and here we are at the Super Bowl. I think you have to commend the NFL on doing a wonderful job in doing something that was, I think they were faced with a tough task, and they found a way to get it done.
At the same time, I mean, the protocols are all different. You guys got tested, I'm sure, a countless amount of times during the season. When it came to just kind of the habits of traveling around the country, playing in other team stadiums with all these protocols in place, how did that kind of change the workflow that you usually have going into each game every Sunday?
It was a very different dynamic. First of all, getting tested every day was very different. Getting your temperature checked multiple times a day, filling out surveys every day, going in and getting tested, having to wear a tracker when you're in the building, having to use different meeting rooms, not being able to eat in the cafeteria. Just our day-to-day workflow was different. Traveling was way different. We weren't allowed to leave the hotel. So, you go to a city, you're not going to the malls or going to restaurants, which you usually would do if you had a little downtime. Not free to just be out, hanging out with teammates. That was very different. We played in a game where a team didn't have a quarterback. And so I don't know if that's ever happened. So, I mean, it was a lot of different dynamics that you had to juggle. I commend our coaches in preparing us and keeping us all on the same page when everything was kind of array, helping us to be able to maintain focus and continue to have a successful season. So it was a challenge, but, when adversity hits, you have to find a way to continue to move forward.
And it sounds like, based off of what you just said, the NFL did a pretty good job when it came to player safety. But of course, player safety, a big question. I have to ask you while we've got you. There was a report from ABC this week about settlements with players suffering from concussions, and a different player safety issue. But they were arguing that, there may have been, less favorable payouts specifically for Black players. I guess I'm just wondering, do you have any thoughts on that? Do you have any kind of viewpoints from your standpoint about how the NFL has been handling some of those issues?
Yeah, I mean, the game is very different now than it was back then. There's a lot more information out now around concussions, around player safety that wasn't made available to players in years past. I think the NFL has gone through tremendous lengths to figure out the best ways to educate players around player safety, to protect us from ourselves. A lot of times, so many penalties and fines are being instituted into the game for player safety. I think the biggest thing is the best thing is that all players are informed of the dangers that they're putting their bodies in when they go into these games. When a player doesn't have that information, made available to them, they can't make a proper decision. But now, from the high school level to the college levels to the college ranks and to the NFL, there's so much information around player safety. And with that information, every player gets to choose whether they want to continue to proceed in their career, if they want to step away from the game, if they want to handle things different, maybe a position change or whatever the case may be. So I think it's a dangerous game. And so just like trying to manage a season in the midst of COVID, that's going to be a hard thing to do, right? Regardless of the case, it's not going to be any way to 100% prevent, any of these cases from happening. But I think you can limit them by educating and giving people the ability to choose. And, at the end of the day, we all have to live with the choices that we make.
Mm-hmm. And then one other thing that was kind of an interesting thread through this NFL season was obviously Black Lives Matter and kind of the social movements that have been happening within the league. But you're doing something yourself. You have a Shield One. It's a foundation that offers grants, endowments that are aimed specifically at economically distressed communities and also HBCUs. Tell us a little bit more about what you're doing on that front.
Yeah, I think 2020 was unique in a way that COVID happened, and then we had the reawakening of the social justice movement, and everybody was kind of just stuck at home and looking at it at the same time, which mobilized millions of people to be out marching in the streets. And I think in my heart and my brother Josh Norman's heart, we always want to be solutions to the problems. We never want to just be marching or making noise. We want to find solutions. And, one of the ways that we did that in the wake of George Floyd's murder and COVID, we realized we need emergency response programs. And so we did a tour across the country and went to 5 cities in 5 days, met with people on the ground, met with stakeholders and leaders in the community, and launched the emergency response program. And essentially, what that is, we go into communities where people need life-sustaining help. They need food, they need health services, and other resources that are just going to help them live. And they can't afford impact of, things like COVID and other such things. And so how do you help them? And so what we do is we use our platforms and we use our global relationships to go in and meet with not just the organizations that are on the ground doing work, but leaders in communities. And we help accelerate those communities and help accelerate resources to the people that live there. And through our platforms, when we start posting on social media, the thing we see is, miracles pretty much happen. You start getting donations and contributions and people who want to be a part. And what I've seen, especially in 2020, so many people wanted to help. So many people want to be involved, but they don't really know what to do or the best ways to create impact. And so what we've learned is you have to listen to the people who come from those communities, who live in those communities, who are going through it, and they'll tell you exactly what they need. And then you'll be able to connect with the right people to create those systems. And that's what we've been able to do through Shield One, to not only be a solution to small communities that are hurting, but to the nation and globally.
That's awesome. And just one last question to wrap up here. I mean, obviously, we have the Super Bowl on Sunday. What's your prediction on that front? And then secondly, is Drew Brees going to come back? Is there any sort of insider information you can offer us on that front?
I don't have any information or insider information on Drew Brees. I know he's going to make the best decision for himself and his family. And I'm rolling with him, whatever he decides. As far as the Super Bowl goes, I've been saying this and I'll continue to say this. I think it's going to be two of the most explosive offenses, probably in a long time playing in the Super Bowl, and definitely one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and one that's on his way to proving himself in that same conversation. And so it's going to be a really good game. As far as prediction, I'm not a fan of either team, but being I'm Who Dat Nation and I'm a Saint, I can't roll with Tampa Bay at all. I got to go with the Chiefs.
Fair enough. Well, Demario Davis, again, linebacker for the New Orleans Saints, and I'm a Jets fan, so thank you for your service. Really appreciate you coming on today.